Hey everybody, and welcome to TYT Community. I have with me today, of course, my beautiful and wonderful co-host, Rhiannon and Avaneen, and I have a special guest today here with us, is Brad Friedman from bradblog.com. Holy shit.
Hey Jeff, hey Rhiannon, good to be here.
We're glad to have you, man.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely stoked. All
My
right,
pleasure, my honor.
all right. So why don't we get started here and dive right in to the, well, gee, what happened yesterday? I think a little thing called Sequester. I want to break down some of the numbers. The sequester, of course, includes $42.7 billion in defense cuts, $28.7 billion in domestic discretionary spending cuts. You know, all these different numbers that you can find pretty much anywhere, right? So, like I said,
Actually, you can't find them at bradblog.com. We're not playing the sequester game over there, so you can't find them there because we think it's bullshit.
and I'll agree, and I want to get right into why it's bullshit. So, the whole thing cuts $85 billion, right, from both defense spending and discretionary non-defense spending. I want to get into some of the examples of the rampant waste and fraud that the defense industry, the military-industrial complex, is actually doing. And so I want to go back all the way to 2001, 9/10, one day before September 11th. Donald Rumsfeld had announced that $2.3 trillion of pentagon spending is gone. Couldn't be accounted for. Where did it go? What the hell, right?
Yep.
And then, of course, and this is on the Huffington Post by Lloyd Chapman. That's where I got this information. He said a Government Accountability Office statement had said that there was serious financial mismanagement problems at the Department of Defense that made its financial statement unauditable. They can't even audit the books. What's going on here?
Well, that's the Department of Defense. I mean, every dime that is spent there is apparently sacrosanct. You can't cut anything from there. If they lose trillions or billions of dollars, it doesn't matter because it's the Department of Defense. And Republicans who pretend to be conservatives don't really care about waste, fraud, and abuse when it's spent on military contractors. And the military-industrial society, as they see it, is the only thing that matters in this country, the only thing they need to spend money on. And and that's what they do. And if $3 trillion disappeared, who cares? It went to some of their contractor friends, so they're cool with that, aren't they?
Yep, and not only that, but their contractor friends gave some of it back in the form of campaign contributions. This is crony capitalism at its worst.
Yep.
And so, and let me give you some more. Let me give you actually some. Jump over to the Federal Reserve. They've got some waste and fraud issues as well. And the GAO audited the Federal Reserve and found that there were $16 trillion in secret, near zero interest loans to banks, corporations, and even other countries. So now we've got waste over there as well, and waste in the military-industrial complex. So you want to talk about that $85 billion? No, that's not shit compared to what we're spending on the banks and on the corporations. So let's just open it up. So,
well, when it comes to money like that, and I'm glad you mentioned the part about how the money goes out to the defense contractors and then comes back as donations to the politicians. And by the way, I should also mention, though I started out by punching Republicans in the face there, Democrats are also love their military spending. So, I want to give them credit where it's due, or lack of credit where it's due, as is the case, frankly, as is the case with Democrats. The only reason I point out Republicans is because they're so hypocritical about it. They love to pretend that they're conservatives when they're anything but. When they love big government, they love giving out money hand over fist, as long as it's to their people. So when they, when they talk about big government, that's bullshit. They love big government. As long as it's big government to the people they wish to funnel the money to. And so, when it comes to defense, they can't give out enough money to those guys.
Right. The only thing that they mean by small government is they want as few regulations as possible and as few taxes as possible. They want the least amount of burden on themselves, even though they're the ones with the most wealth.
What makes you so sure they want the least amount of regulations? I mean, remember, these are the guys who are proposing hundreds and hundreds of, abortion-related bills.
Well, it depends on the regulations. It depends on the regulations, though.
Right.
What I'm talking about at the moment is business regulations.
Well, here's what it comes down to. The Republican Party wants small government. They want government that's small enough to fit into a vagina, and that's it. Otherwise, let it go. Yeah.
No, I mean, the notion that they want small government is ridiculous. It's a bullshit. It's a PR line they've been using for years. There's certain things, certain regulations they don't like. Others they would like to be huge. They would like to be in your, in your bedroom when it comes to marriage equality. They want to tell you who you can and can't marry. They want to, tell you if you have the right to have an abortion, if you have the right to vote. If you have the right to vote, even if you're a felon, a former felon who hasn't been in jail for years. So, there are some regulations they are against, a lot of regulations they are for, but to give them any sort of credit, whatever, to say that they are in favor of small government, I'm sorry, is just complete and utter bullshit. And that's what they run on to try to get elected, but it has nothing to do with the truth, frankly.
They want absolutely no business regulations. They want no regulations for themselves, but they want personal regulations for everyone because they want to control people's lives and force them into this conformist image of what they need, which also includes denying them of education, because the more education someone has, the more likely they are to challenge the system and the way things are.
And by the way, Rhiannon, I will agree with you on every point there, except even the idea of business regulations. I'm not sure I can go through with that. They want regulations on what kind of drugs people can buy, whether you can, buy marijuana, whether you can buy and sell alcohol. So I'm not even sure I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to business regulations either, frankly.
Well, it comes down to what businesses are going to give them money.
Yeah.
What's going to enrich the corporations the most? It's what they're going.
Right. For example,
what they're going to do.
Right. For example, they want to cut the funding for the FDA and cut regulations for the FDA, so that they have an easier time not having to worry about these tree huggers who want to cut down on the amount of pollution that they're throwing into the rivers and throwing into the landfills. That's the kind of regulation that they want to do away with. Well,
aren't we kind of missing the elephant in the room? Privatization? I mean, this all kind of goes hand in hand with the ability or with the desire to privatize a lot of the government functions in order to make a profit.
Right, exactly. If they can make a profit at it, that's what they want to do.
If their friends can make a profit at it, so that their friends can make a whole lot of money, and then they can leave Congress and go right through the revolving door and join their friends and get their big payoffs. Absolutely, no question about it.
And that's and like I said, back to the sequester. Just what you guys said. It's bullshit. It doesn't mean a damn thing. The cuts in defense are so token, and not only that, but they're cutting mostly pensions for soldiers. They're not cutting most defense contractors. They're trying to cut things that help the soldiers, veterans programs. Of course. So, they've found a way to screw over the regular people in favor of the defense contractors. And then they're going on TV and saying, God, it's so hard to cut defense. John McCain, great example. He's like, these cuts will devastate defense. Bullshit. McCain, retire, please. It's past your time.
Yeah, long past his time.
Clean up, go home.
Yeah. No, he does need to go home. He's It's really sad what has happened to John McCain. But yeah, listen, you know, when it comes to the sequester, we've been talking about this at Brad Blog. I've been speaking with my our legal analyst Ernie Canning about this, and you know, he has said that Obama needs to share at least some fault in this, and I'm not sure if that's the case. What do you guys think of that? Before I tell you what the discussion is that he and I are having, is this 100% Republicans being obstinate, or does the president share some blame in whatever mess, if any, that the sequester represents?
I think that he deserves a little bit of the blame because he didn't put his foot down in the first place with the Republicans and tell them, look, this is the way it's going to be. He's been...
You mean during the debt ceiling fight, he should have said this is the way it's going to be, and for how could he have done that?
Well, okay, just in general with his policies with the Republicans, it's all about it's been about this bipartisan drive, desire for compromise with the Republicans. He's been placating the Republicans. He's been trying to play nice with them, and he hasn't really, I don't think, displayed himself as being a tough enough leader, because even in his re-election he insisted that we still need to work for a compromise, we still need a bipartisan alliance, and I'm so sick of hearing the word bipartisan. And frankly, he's trying to placate to people who have insane policies, against humans and social programs, and if you compromise with something that's insane, you're always going to get something that's half insane.
But how do you, Rhiannon, how do you pass any bills then if you don't compromise? Mind you, I'm not arguing necessarily for it against it, but doesn't he still have to have, you know, he's got a Republican House. He had a Republican House back in August of 2011 when we were getting to the debt ceiling. If they didn't get a deal on the debt ceiling, you know, it arguably would have been disastrous for the world economy. So how could he have played that differently? Just said, no, I'm not going to play that game, and call their bluff and let the world economy come crashing down if that's what happened, if they refused to raise the debt ceiling at that point?
I don't know. It is difficult to get anything done, even when you're the president, if neither the House nor the Senate will cooperate with you.
Well, here's the thing, too, about the obstinance of the Republicans. Obama has shown that he's been willing to go for a grand bargain, right? He wants the grand bargain that cuts Social Security and Medicare, and we all know this, because he's been calling for it every time. Changes to entitlements. We got to reform entitlements. You know what reform means? Reform always means shredding it, cutting it. And then, you know, and of course that goes back to privatization, but that's a different topic, right? But so he's been playing so you know, nice with his Republicans by saying all this stuff like, I want a compromise, I want a grand bargain. And so these Republicans know that, well, this is what he wants, and he's going to fold because we want that too.
Well, you know, he has said that he wants to, you know, that he was willing to make cuts to Medicare, to Social Security. That was probably one mistake. Cutting Social Security doesn't make much sense. It's solvent for a long time. Medicare, however, does need to be dealt with, does need to be figured out. It's interesting that, you know, the easiest way to figure these things out, raise the caps on what people pay for this stuff, never seems to come up in these discussions. But, you know, he realizes that if he's going to make a deal on anything, he has to at least, you know, try to offer an olive branch, try to offer something in return. But Rhiannon is right. When you're dealing with crazy people, you're going to end up with some crazy shit. And that's sort of where we are at this point. The idea that deficit reduction should have even been tied to the that the deficit reduction should have even been tied at all to the debt ceiling is ridiculous and obscene, and it's something that Obama should have never even entertained in the first place. And that's why we're here, because he said, okay, we'll do deficit reduction in exchange for a debt ceiling deal back in August of 2011. And here we are a year and a half later. The sequester kicks in because it was part of that deal. If he had said, look, deficit reduction has nothing to do with the debt ceiling, period, then we wouldn't be in this mess. So to that extent, I'd say that Obama does share some blame because he was willing to play along with their phony game back in 2011, and still now, for that matter.
Right, and once again, you know, in case anybody doesn't know, Social Security doesn't add a dime to the deficit. It is solvent. It is its own account. It doesn't add anything. So why are we even entertaining the idea of chopping it? Why?
Right.
Well, and
because he plays along with the game.
Yeah.
Because he plays along with the game, this idea that we've got this huge debt, this huge deficit, and we've got to do something about it, or we're headed for an economic crash, which is, by the way, complete and utter bullshit. Jeff Spross wrote a great article last week, I think it was, at Think Progress. We picked it up at bradblog.com, talking about the fact that this idea that debt is spiraling out of control is complete and utter nonsense. Fact of the matter is, the short-term debt, which is, the stuff that you hear people talking about, oh, we owe China for this and that. If we stop the short-term debt today, we would have it paid off in a matter of years just from growth of the economy and the increases in productivity year after year. The debt that people are pretending is an impending disaster, as Paul Ryan did, for example, during the campaign, is the debt associated with Medicare, rising healthcare costs, Social Security, that is, down the road 20 years or 75 years, as Paul Ryan was discussing. Well, predicting what the economy is going to be like in 75 years is utterly ridiculous. As Spross points out, it would be like predicting what the 2013 economy was going to be like back in 1934. Before the internet, before all of the wars, before the global economic crash, everything else that we've had. We had no idea back in 1934 where we would be in 2013. So to say, oh, if we don't do something, then 75 years from now, this country is going to be bankrupt and we're all going to be buying Glenn Beck survival seeds, it is just stupid. Things change. Obamacare has already begun to change things. Over the past year, we've had the lowest increase in the cost of health care in like 50 years. Why? Well, it looks like Obamacare is already having an effect in bending the curve, as they used to say, the curve for the rise in healthcare costs. So when you see these numbers from the CBO and so forth, we don't necessarily, they are predictions and they are based on assumptions from the past, but they don't take into account the changing effects of policies into the future. So it's really just a game. It's a scare tactic that guys like Paul Ryan either believe or he's too fucking stupid to know better, to imagine that our economy is not going to change in any way, shape, or form. So if everything stays exactly as it does today, in 75 years from today, there'll be freakouts in the streets, and it's just ridiculous. It has never happened that way in the history of our country. And unless these Republicans are allowed to go along with their madness and the Democrats are dumb enough to play along with it, that sort of thing never will happen. But that's the debt that everybody's freaking out about. It's not our existing debt. It's our future debt, the debt that we have yet to acquire, and the debt that they pretend is going to spiral out of control unless we suddenly cut everything that we give a damn about in this country, all of the social services, and everything that we, the people, give a damn about when it comes to our own self-governance.
And there you go. I mean, that pretty much covers it right there. But, and for another thing, who really cares about the now forget about the Beltway, forget about the knuckleheads on Capitol Hill, forget about all them, the Tea Partiers, whatever, right? Who really cares about the debt and deficit today? Do you know what people get? I could go outside and I could ask somebody, hey, do you know our debt's over $16 trillion? You know, does it really matter to you? No, they're going to be like, no. What does matter to you? Jobs, security.
Right, but here's what what the Republicans have been very good and very smart at doing, and I also, again, blame the Democrats for playing along with this. I blame the media for playing along with this, is the notion that the debt is somehow tied to jobs. You know, there's a show that I appear on every week, and they're good guys, they're sort of libertarian-ish guys, but you know, they have fallen for the scam as well. We were talking, I was on it last week, and they were saying, well, if we don't do something about the debt, that's why corporations aren't hiring, because they're afraid. Well, you know, the reason corporations aren't hiring is because nobody has any money to buy things, so there's no demand. Corporations don't just go out and hire people to be good guys. You know, they have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders to not just hire people to be good guys, but to hire people when demand is increased. And that's when people hire. The debt and the deficit has absolutely nothing to do with whether corporations are hiring or not. But the Republicans have been very cagey and very clever in tying these two completely different ideas together. Oh, we've got to get the deficit under control. We've got to get the debt under control so people start hiring again. It has nothing to do with the debt or deficit, whether people hire or not. Nothing.
Absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
that's what I was trying to explain to some people who are arguing with me about if we raise the minimum wage, then companies are going to start firing people. And I said, the hell they are. The hell they are. They would be asinine to fire people if they are in need of labor, because if you raise the minimum wage, people are going to have more money. They're going to have more money to buy products. If they're buying more products, then businesses are going to have a higher demand. Thus, they are going to have a higher need to hire people and have employees to keep up with that demand.
Well, that's right, and that's what you would think, and that's what I would think, and that's what the general sort of Keynesian progressive thought is around this. And Republicans say, oh, that's not the case. If we raise the minimum wage, we'll have to fire people. But here's the deal: we don't have to guess. We don't have to say, God, I wonder if Rhiannon is going to be right on this one, or I wonder if Paul Ryan is going to be right on this one. We can go back and look at history when we have done this before, when we have raised the minimum wage. We can look to see, did people end up getting laid off because of it, or did the economy grow and people were hired? And in fact, what we have found is, you can go back and look study after study, that raising the minimum wage has absolutely no effect on hiring, frankly, one way or another. No, people don't start firing people just because the minimum wage has been raised. And by the way, they're talking about raising it. What Obama is calling for is raising it, I think, to $9, which would still put us below what the minimum wage was back in 1968 in accounting for inflation. So once again, it's complete and utter bullshit, but Democrats are not making the case effectively or sometimes at all. So therefore, as usual, the corporate media sort of goes with this conventional thinking and plays over and over again these sound bites of these Republicans saying, well, we're not going to raise the minimum wage because it'll cost us jobs. And nobody is effectively answering that case in the corporate media.
Exactly.
And of course you have these Democrats that they're not making the case because it's not good for their campaign contributions. They rely on business so much to fund their campaigns. Because if they do go against some of the business interests, to a certain extent, Democrats have a little bit of leeway, I would say, for using populism. You know what? Populism actually works. But why they don't use it as much as they could? Because it would piss off their corporate donors.
Also because they're cowards and they're scared of everything. And, they go along with the conventional wisdom of whatever is, whatever is said on the media, whatever is said inside the Beltway. They go along with that, and they don't seem to have, very few of them, and I don't want to tar all of them, but very few of them seem to be able to make effective arguments against the bullshit conventional wisdom, against the bullshit conservative wisdom, I think, as Howie Klein calls it over at Down with Tyranny. They don't know how to answer that stuff in the media. It's still pathetic, and so again, you still have to turn to guys like the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur to talk about what's really going on, and unfortunately, there ain't enough people paying attention to Cenk Uygur.
All right. So does anybody have any final points? I mean, let's start with you, Rhiannon, and then we'll go to Brad.
The only way the sequester was going to work is if in the sequester there was a part in there where the salaries of the congressmen were cut. There's nothing in the sequester that means anything to them. It's no skin off the Republicans' nose whatsoever, whatever happens with the sequester. In fact, they're probably gleeful that they get to finally make the social spending cuts that they've been aching to make in the first place, because God forbid we feed people and educate them and give them health care. I'm afraid that I'm going to feel the effects of this, and that my family will, and so it makes me angry, but there's really nothing that can be done. It's a waste. It's been a waste of time. It's been a waste of effort. We had to make up this imaginary cliff in order to try to pressure Republicans into making a change, but we didn't make the change hard enough for them. We're not making them sacrifice anything. So that's why it's not going to work. They're never going to feel the pain of this. They don't care. So it's just another way that they've gotten away with screwing over the average American person.
All right.
You don't think they're going to feel they're concerned about the cuts to defense? You don't think that's a concern for them?
No, not really, because most of those cuts are going to go to people. They're going to affect people, not their weapons, not their bombs, not their arsenals, not their defense contractors. It's going to affect people and veterans and not them, not the things that they care about.
Not the contractors.
Right.
Yeah, listen, I think it's just... frankly, the sooner we move to a topic that actually matters, that doesn't play into the bullshit, because frankly, covering, even talking about this plays into their hands, and there are so many more important things going on in a week with what we saw at the Supreme Court this week with the Voting Rights Act. Issues that actually matter, to Americans. This sequester is just frankly bullshit to keep us from paying attention to the real issues that we need to take care of and that we need to be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with Brad. It's bullshit, and it's bullshit. And it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt the defense contractors. It's going to hurt regular people, and it's not going to do anything about the rampant spending that we have in the defense contractor industry. And you're right. It's best we move on to another topic. Thank you, everybody, for watching this segment of TYT Community. Make sure to check out Brad. Brad, where can we find you, man?
You can find me at bradblog.com. You can find me on the Twitters at TheBradBlog, and also on the Facebook at TheBradBlog as well.
Well, there you go. That is the hookup. Ree, where can we find you?
You can find me at facebook.com/LadyRhiannon824. And you can find me at my blog at LadyRhiannon824.blogspot.com. And you can find me on Twitter at LadyRhiannon824.
And you can find me on YouTube at YouTube/user JC Waldorf. So check out my show there. Thanks everybody for watching, and stick around for more clips.